Morning, folks. You might notice I'm not driving a Jeep. I'll explain in a minute. Hey everyone, I'm currently driving my wife's Nissan Pathfinder to work because yesterday the Jeep decided to leave me sitting on the side of the road. That's kind of disappointing. I've never actually had my Jeep, any of my Jeeps, fall into a state where I couldn't get them home. And now the LJ has done this to me. And I'm disappointed. Not so disappointed that I'm going to push it off a cliff or something. I'm just, I broke the streak. So, yesterday morning on my way into work, the Jeep threw a code, which I later found out after I stopped driving and plugged in my scanner. The code, and I will put the code ID, it's like P1775, I think it was, or 7115. I'll put the code in the description of the video, or I'll add it in somehow, I don't know. It basically, after some Googling, translates to the automatic transmission tried to downshift to first gear and couldn't. And after doing so, I think it says if the condition lasts for more than 5 minutes, it throws the code. Or 15 minutes, I don't know, whatever it was. It throws the code. And it did. And I noticed in driving it that it felt like it wasn't starting from a stop correctly. It felt like, well, to be honest, it felt like a clutch slipping. Or it felt like it was in the wrong gear, which I know from years of driving and from driving manual transmissions. Put it in second gear and try to pull out, and you'll notice you just don't have the power because the gear ratio is too high or higher than you're used to. That's what it felt like. So I was already most of my way to work when it happened, so I got it to work and I parked it for the day, and I thought, well, I'll let it sit. I'll do some research on the codes. I don't have much choice anyway because I was already at work. So I worked for the day. I did a little bit of research online. That's where I found out about the what the code meant. Did some reading on forums and fix-it sites and whatever with mechanics, certified mechanics on them. Found a couple ideas on what it could be. One of them said, oh, it's probably the control module for the transmission. The transmission's probably okay. Try to reseat the plug and try to do this and that. If you have to, maybe replace the module. Another guy said it had to do with valve bodies within the transmission. There's one of them that has a habit of wearing into a groove, and then the valve in there doesn't always open and close right, which to me sounds like a much bigger problem, but he talked about it like it was no big deal. Not no big deal like don't fix it, but no big deal to fix. Not something I could do on my own probably, but something I could pay a transmission shop to do. But none of them said, oh my God, don't drive the Jeep. So I thought, all right, when the day's over, I will drive it home, park it in the garage until I figure out what's wrong with it. Probably take it to my mechanic, because everybody said you need to get it scanned by somebody with a real scanner, not just like an iPhone app or something, which is what I have. I have an app on my tablet which interfaces with a Bluetooth OBD2 dongle, which apparently does not get the same level of detail that a true scanner would. I don't know the difference. I don't know why my Bluetooth OBD scanner can't do it, but that's what everybody was saying online. So I thought, all right, I'll get it home, park it, figure out what's wrong with it, figure out how I'm getting to work until I figure out what's wrong with it, and we should be fine, right? So at the end of the day, I get back in the Jeep and start it up, and the codes are still there because there's memory, right? I didn't clear them when I hooked my scanner up before. I tried to clear them, but then at that point I already had the engine running. You can only clear them when the engine's off, and I didn't want to shut it off just to clear the codes and go, so I don't know if the next thing that happened threw a different code or not. because things got a little hectic and I didn't really have a chance to look. Maybe I'll check when I get home tonight. But, so the check engine light was still on. Hadn't changed. Driving home, like 3/4 of the way home, everything seems to be going okay. The transmission doesn't feel like it's in the wrong gear anymore. It's shifting up and down okay. There's a little bit of I don't even want to say it's a problem, because I think it's always done this. Automatic transmissions, you can always feel when they shift. Well, I could feel it when it shifted. Not like horrible, oh my God, there's a horrible problem. But, you could feel the shift, especially if it's under power, that sort of thing. I think it's always done that. And now I'm just hypersensitive to it because I'm, worried that my transmission's going to fall out or something. So, largely, the drive home is going okay. 1 or 2 times from a stop, starting, it felt like maybe the same thing happened, where it was not in first gear. But in all, it was driving okay. Got about 3/4 of the way home, and I'm trying to, how your memory works. I'm trying to think back to exactly what the progression here was, but I'm driving down a 4-lane highway, which is in the last 15 miles home, 10 miles maybe, until I get home. And I think the transmission shifted. And then I feel resistance. And then the Jeep starts to slow down. And then I hear some really nasty noises coming from underneath the Jeep. Not grinding per se, but gears that don't have teeth, or gears that are not quite meshed properly. Sort of passing each other. But I'm still able to kind of move. And I'm at a spot on the highway where it's not great to pull over, but I don't really have much choice. So I pull over onto the shoulder, which is just wide enough for a Jeep. It's 2 lanes, white line, 1 car width, barely. I can't even open my door with traffic coming. Divider wall, and then a mountain, right? Mountain that's been carved out to make the road. So I'm pulled over, and I wait until I'm able to I turn off the Jeep. So I wait until I can, because one of my thoughts, this transmission always runs hot. And it's just the way the TJ's automatic is. It's like a common thing that plagues the newer automatic TJs. So I had it in my head in the morning that it could have been that the transmission got really hot, because the temperature outside is warmer than normal. And I'm figuring, maybe something changed, maybe, whatever. I'm just trying to rationalize stuff in my head. So I'm thinking, all right, I'll shut the Jeep off. So I shut it off, I get out. I do notice, some steam, but it's not coming from the radiator, and it subsides really quickly. Because I didn't think it was coming from the radiator. But it was also a very damp day, and my radiator tends to throw steam, not from the radiator, but just the hot radiator on a damp day, you will see steam. So I think that's all I saw. But I'm just trying to recount everything that I did see, or that I can remember. So I shut off the Jeep, I get out, I go to the passenger side where there's just enough room for me to fit between this median and barrier and the Jeep, and I crouch down, I look underneath, just to see if something is throwing smoke or steam, because like I said, I saw the steam. There wasn't much else I could do in this position, so I basically, checked it out. A nice motorist had stopped behind me to find out if I needed help, and I let him know that, thank you, but I've got AAA, I've got a cell phone, I've got coverage, cell coverage. I think I'll be okay, but, thanks a ton for stopping. So I, maybe 5 to 10 minutes I'm stopped, tops. And I thought, all right, I'm going to try to get myself out of trouble, which is the spot that I'm parked in. I'm just waiting for someone to come cruising down and like an idiot, clip my Jeep or something. So I hop back in the Jeep, start it up. First I try reverse, because I'm thinking if it's a transmission problem, maybe it's the forward gears that are no good. I was thinking in reverse, and kind of the same thing happens. Like I hear the same noises. I'm drifting backwards, but I'm also going up a hill. So, like, I'm facing uphill. So I put it in drive, and I'm able to move. It almost feels normal, but I know it's not, because you can still hear the noises. There's no way I'm thinking about driving it home at this point. I just want to get it. They're literally like 50, 100 yards up the road is a turnoff that I'm going to try to get to. So I limp it up over the crest of the hill, then I'm on the downhill side, which is great because I don't have to put it under as much power. It seemed like if I were to bump the gas, the tension or the pressure on the drivetrain would make it slip, right? It would make it do whatever it's doing. So in my head, I'm thinking there's something that's just barely catching, and that's why I'm able to move. And if I try to push it, it doesn't catch, right? So I get it up over the hill, I drift it down, I get off the side of the road. At this point, it's getting dark, which is really annoying, because I'd like to get out and look at the underside of the Jeep a little better. Not that, again, not like there's much I'm going to be able to do, but I try anyway. And I figure as soon as I pull over, the first thing I need to do is call AAA, because it's going to take them an hour. It always takes them an hour to get anywhere. So I call up AAA, get that set up. They get the location wrong, which I realize. So, like, I call AAA, I get off the phone with them, I call my wife to let her know what's going on. I check AAA's map that they sent me, and I realize they're sending the tow truck to the completely wrong location. I call them back, they reset the location. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a little bit of time to wait until AAA gets here. So I'm going to, like, there's obviously two sides of the road. I'm in, like, a little bit of a dirt pull-off on one side of the road. On the other side of the road is a much larger dirt pull-off. And I'm like, okay, the Jeep has been sitting and off for, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes at this point. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to start it up and get to the other dirt lot, because it's bigger, it's going to be better for the truck when it gets here, for the rollback. So I start up the Jeep, put it in, again, I try reverse. Reverse is like nothing now. It's like I'm in neutral. So I throw it in drive, and it catches, and I feel it lurch forward. I hear, so the 42 RLE, which is what's in the TJ, or at least the 05 TJ. When you put it in drive, it always makes like a buzz, which I always assumed was some sort of a servo or something doing its thing. I hear that noise. I feel the Jeep lurch a little bit like it's in drive. Oh, perfect. Cool. I can move now. So I really gingerly drive it across, basically do a big U-turn to get from one side of the road to the other, into the other dirt lot. This is a very low traffic road, so I'm not like doing anything that's going to get me hit. Unless, of course, the transmission gives out in the center of the road, in which case I would have been kind of screwed, but, you know, whatever. So I turn it around and get it to the other dirt lot, which is muddier, and I end up parked in a puddle, but it's dark, so I didn't realize that. I should have just stayed where the hell I was. But anyway, once I get it over there, I think, okay, the truck is going to want to get in front of me to pull the Jeep on forward, so I better back up to the far side of the lot. Well, that didn't happen. I can't back up at all. I put it in reverse and nothing. I mean, it's just completely nothing. But I thought it was worth a try, even though I had tried reverse already. Yeah, I just throw it in park and wait. And at this point, I really have to take a leak, so I'm going to get out, try to take a leak. I get out of the Jeep, step in the puddle that I didn't know was there, because it's dark. And I just about get out of the Jeep, and I see what looks like a rollback coming down the hill, which is the road that I'm parked on. I'm like, oh, cool, he's here. So I just, like, come around the other side of the Jeep and wait for him. Didn't get to take a leak. And of course, I'm parked in a puddle, so he's like, can you move it? No. He's like, all right, can we pull it forward? I'm like, probably. He gets in and puts it in forward gear, and it won't move forward now either. Forward, reverse, nothing. And he says, in his experience, it feels more like the transfer case than the transmission. And I kind of agree with him. I didn't at first, because I'm thinking to myself, well, the NP231J, the input and output are joined, at least I thought. But after I thought about it later, no, you can put the NP231J in neutral, which means there must be some way to disconnect the input and output. So it could very well be that the transfer case is what is messed up right now. So anyway, we try shifting the transfer case like into 4 high and back to see if maybe that makes it work. And at that point, it won't, nothing. It doesn't, we can't go forward or backward. So he loads it onto the rollback from behind. He pulls it on backwards. He then, once it's on the rollback, of course, he puts it in park to see if it'll hold itself in place while he gets it chained, and it won't. So even in park, transmission in park, it's still, the wheels will still roll, which, in his opinion, he said that doesn't sound like the transmission, that sounds like the transfer case. And I think he's right. I think it's at least reasonable. So, he gets it chained down, secured. We drive back to my house because I figure I want to go over this thing before I take it to a mechanic, which means I'm going to have to figure out a way to get it to a mechanic if I can't fix it myself. I don't know if AAA does that. If they'll go site to site. I think they will. I don't know. So yeah, we ride home. He graciously loads it into my driveway, which will line it up with the garage, which, as it works out, was good that he loaded it backwards, because he could literally tilt it down to my driveway and I can just roll it straight into the garage. So that's cool. So when we go to unload it, park appears to be holding again. So if it is the transfer case, it seems to me like it's hit or miss. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had the problems that I had, with it coming in and out of park, essentially. So, yeah, this is my tale of woe. I haven't crawled into the Jeep yet. I pretty much got home last night, ate dinner, spent some time with the family, talked to my wife about whether she needed her car today or not. Luckily, she didn't, so I have a consultant to work with at work, like I told you in Monday's QuickCast. So, big thank you to my wife for letting me take her car for the day. I'm sorry for stranding you at home, honey. Maybe I'll bring you chocolates. Anyway, yeah, so that's my current position, or current stance, whatever, not stance, what's the word I'm looking for? Current conundrum with the Jeep. I need to figure out what the hell's wrong with the drivetrain. If it is the transfer case, I may just price out a Rubicon transfer case, and if the price isn't much different, I may just buy one of them instead of the 231J. I get the feeling I'm going to get another 231J just because I can't afford to throw $1,500 at the Jeep if I don't have to. If I can get a 231J for a couple $100, that's probably a better choice. But if it's going to turn into a bigger thing where I'm going to be dropping a couple thousand or something to fix this thing, which I really hope it's not, now's a great time to upgrade if it's not going to break the bank. But anyway, yeah, if anybody listening or watching has some input on the scenario I just described and things I should check, my plan is basically I'm going to get underneath the Jeep, probably put it up on stands, at least the rear up on stands, maybe both up on stands, front and rear, or at least disconnect the front drive shaft so it doesn't try to drive off the stands. Because when you have a transfer case that is suspect, you never know if it's going to send power to the front drive shaft when it's not supposed to, right? So putting just the rear on stands and trying to diagnose is probably going to be unsafe. I'll probably get all four or both axles up on stands, put it in drive, and let it sort of idle its way in the garage and see if I can find where the noise is coming from. Should be pretty easy at that point. Just get an ear up to the transmission, get an ear up to the transfer case, see which one seems to be making the noise. The transfer case is relatively easy to drop. Basically take off the skid pan and then you can take the transfer case out. So I may just do that, open the case, or just fiddle with the input and output shafts and see if I can make it display the same problems that I'm seeing. Hopefully I can identify this pretty quickly. The thing that concerns me is the code that started it all was definitely the transmission. Unless, I don't know, the things I was reading online were Jeep specific. I was going to say, unless the code is different from one vehicle to another, which it's very likely that it is, and I was reading the wrong information. But no, the guy that I was reading definitely said he was in a Jeep. He was in a Wrangler. So, yeah, that's what confuses me. Could a failing transfer case somehow cause a code that read as a transmission code, an automatic transmission code? I don't know. If anybody knows, let me know. Otherwise, did the transmission fail in some way that's actually the problem? Or did the transmission fail in some way that has also taken out the transfer case? I don't know. I hope that's not it, because then I have two expensive things to replace instead of just one, which sucks. I did ask around an LJ forum or LJ group on Facebook, LJ Nation. One guy said he thinks it's the PCM because he had a similar problem with the PCM. I hope that's not it either, because PCM's not cheap. It's about the same price as a transfer case, though. I did do some quick searching online. I found found a place that sells PCMs for like $600, programmed and everything. So that might be an option. I don't know. Yeah. So I'm really recording this video just so I can get some more feedback. If anybody watching this that has stuck through my 23 minutes of rambling about the problem I just had with my Jeep can give me any suggestions on what it may be, or whether those questions I just asked about the transmission and transfer case and that code, whether they can offer any feedback as to whether those are things that I might, one may have cascaded to the other, or one may have caused the other, or one may have caused the code. The transfer case could have caused the code, whatever. I'd like to hear it. I'm up for learning at this point, because engines and transmissions are still sort of mysterious to me. I vaguely understand how they work, but I've never torn one apart, either of them. Transfer case is different. I'd actually be relieved if it was the transfer case, because that's in my understanding, the least expensive thing to replace, and it's the one I know the most about. I've already had transfer cases out, and I've also had them open, so I could easily pull that apart and look inside and look for broken nastiness in there. Yeah. My brain is immediately going to this, the transmission locked up, and because the transmission locked up, the transfer case, which is transferring all the power from the transmission to the rear drive shaft, just basically got twisted in half inside. I hope that's not what happened, because that means I have two things to replace. I'm talking myself into a $3,000 or $4,000 bill here, guys. Talk me down! Alright, I'm going to stop rambling. Thanks for watching. Please let me know if you have any feedback on what I should be checking first. I'm going to basically get it up on stands, and like I described, check out each piece of the drivetrain, maybe pull the transfer case out and fiddle with that a bit. Maybe once the transfer case is out, I can fiddle with the transmission as well. I don't know. We'll see. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you got anything that can help me. Let me know if you got any leads on a drivetrain. God, I hope it doesn't come to that. All right. Thanks.